Alright, so this is my review of the Sawstop Contractor 30. As far as I know, there are three versions of this model, the 30, 36, and 50-inch versions. This is the 30-inch version, priced at $1,700, I think. And I think the 36-inch version is $2,000. The difference is the 36 and 50-inch model versions come with the wheelbase and an upgraded fence. Now, if you buy the wheelbase separately, it's going to set you back $200. The fence itself, that's a whole nother can of beans, which I'll have to get into in more detail later. But in any case, this is the 30-inch model, which is what I could afford and what was available at the time. So this is what I'm going to be reviewing. But I will tell you a lot of the things I've learned over the last few months of using the saw, using it a lot for a few months. And then I'll give you a lot of tips and everything I've learned over this time. And also at the end, I'll tell you how I would make my purchase decision now compared to before with what I know, having with what I've learned over all this time. So basically, this saw here is pretty straightforward. You know, you got a cast iron top. It came from the factory very flat. I was happy with that. I've seen other table saws, especially from the big box stores. Even this $750 or $800 table saw from Rigid, which a lot of people buy because that's all that's available and kind of within the price range, and where the cast iron top is a little concave or something. But this was pretty darn flat from the factory. I didn't know this until I started researching table saws, but cast iron has kind of a curing time. So if companies are just looking to produce and then they manufacture a cast iron table saw, for example, and then send it out, box it up and send it out, before that iron has a time to cure, then it can actually warp or move like a wood. I didn't know that, and I still don't know a lot about it. I never took the time to look it up, but it's something to know. The manufacturing process and the cast iron products are really important, apparently. So, that's one reason to buy a good brand that has a really good manufacturing process, because you're going to get stuff that's not going to bend on you 3 or 4 months down the road or whatever. So in any case, this was pretty flat from the factory. Now it came with this what they call the zero clearance throat plate or insert. Now to me, I always saw a zero clearance throat plate as having just a slit for the blade and the riving knife. This here has kind of a substantial opening here. That there are some caveats to this here, and I'll tell you a couple of them. First of all, it has a little bit of opening there. So if you're doing thin ripping, you got to be careful, because anytime you're ripping thin and for whatever reason, if something gets caught there, it could cause a dangerous kickback. So as far as zero clearance, I'm not really sure this is 100%. This 100% qualifies. I mean, I guess you could cut one out with a router and then yourself and all that, but why spend $1,700 on a table saw if you're going to make your own parts for it? So one of the things here that bothers me about this throat plate is that basically it's kind of cool that it goes and locks in here like that with this lever, but like other table saws, you see these little tabs and stuff here where this is where the throat plate sits on, and these little platforms, Allen wrench platforms here, are what let you adjust it. And there's a couple on the throat plate itself, little feet, right? And you adjust them for height and make sure that they're level with your table saw. Now, one of the problems I started running into after a while, after just like a few weeks of using it, I noticed that as I was pushing boards through it, they started to kind of get caught right here. And at one time, it was kind of dangerous. I almost got a kickback. Luckily, I didn't, but you know, it got caught right here, and I started looking at and I thought, no, I got everything flat. I got a straight edge, and I checked it. But here's the thing. Because the adjustments are only right here on each side, right? Now, let's look at the end here. These two that are embedded here are just inside of these two. So that kind of gives you a little bit of versatility and adjustment. But the problem is that because there's no support in the middle, right? Then what happens is it started to develop some play in the middle right here. And whenever I'd push a piece across, if it had any weight to it, it would push down in here and then get caught on the lip right there. It was screwing up some of my cuts, so I tried to fix it. What I noticed was that it has these little metal catches or latches, right? And I had to bend this in because from the way that they were at the factory, they're tight enough to secure it down in place, but there's just enough play to where if you push here, it would allow this part here to lift up a little bit, and so you could hit it, and you could hear it tapping against that. So I tightened them up so that way when you push down right here, there isn't any movement. I don't know how long that'll last, but without doing that, there was no way to get it perfectly flat, because if you adjust these to where it's flat with the top, and you adjust these to where it's flat with the top, the middle part's going to sink in a little bit and it's going to catch right here. And that could be dangerous for kickback. I don't know why they designed it like that, but there are a few things about this saw as far as the engineering that really disappoint me. This was one of them. There's just no way to really kind of adjust this. Now, I'm pretty sure Sawstop would be kind enough to send me a new throw plate. If I told them the problem, they probably would say, okay, well, maybe it's a throw plate. But then what would happen later on? I mean, how long do these metal latches here, stay? I don't know. That has yet to be seen. But, just a limitation of the design. That's what it is. And it's never going to be perfectly flat with the table. That kind of sucks, but you work with it. Now, this comes with stainless steel wings. I really, really wish I had cast iron wings. That would be really nice. But to upgrade these wings here to cast iron, they're $260 each. So that's over $500, just to replace those. It's an expense I can afford for a table saw right now, so, But there are some advantages, I guess, to these steel wings. First of all, they're coated with some kind of black powder coating. It seems rather durable. It doesn't seem to scratch too easily. It has these contours where this big old logo and that is. And I'm not trying to advertise for them, but they put their logo everywhere, right? So basically, when you're assembling it, you put bolts and stuff on top. They won't roll around because they'll kind of they won't roll off the table saw. When you're cramped for space in a small garage like I am, where you have to train, and then you got to keep all your wood storage and all your chemicals and everything like that, your table saw kind of becomes a work surface. So what you do is you get a piece of plywood or what I do is I get a piece of plywood that I've wrapped up with painter's tape or packing tape, and I just set it on top of my cast iron, and I kind of use it as a work surface often because it's just a space limitation. That's what I have to do. Or, you know, like when I cut parts, sometimes I'll set it over here. I'll set the parts over here. So, you know, having these stainless steel wings are kind of an advantage because, see, I can set wooden parts on top of here without worrying about rusting the top. If I set it on top of the cast iron, if you put wood there, it's gonna rust the top. So I can set it over here and just kind of keep the parts ready, and I just roll it out the next day and then start working on the stuff I'm building. I can leave my sled here, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute, but I've got these, which I said here, just to show you real quick, like how I care for this table saw. I'm sure there are people who know a lot more about it than I do, but basically, I use WD-40 just to clean any rust that might develop. You can't just spray it on and scrub it with the piece of steel wool like I thought I would be able to do. You kind of got to spray it on, leave it there for a few hours at least, sometimes. So anyway, but then you got to clean it off. You don't want WD-40 to get on your wood. Then I was looking at different products, and I was trying to find something that would protect my cast iron from rust, but not nothing silicone based that would cause stains on my wood, like poplar, especially cherry. If a bead of sweat drops on cherry, it turns blue or purple or something, and it's really hard to sand out. It messes up your project, so you can't sweat on cherry wood. So anyway, and you don't want anything that leaves a residue. So I found this bow shield, and my aerosol ran out, so I just went to the store, and they didn't have the spray, so I got this thing here. But it's a really thin kind of oil, and what it does is when it dries, it leaves a really fine wax film or something on the surface, which protects it from rust. So the bow shield was working fine, but then I went over to the store and I found this stuff for gun barrels, and it's actually all natural. There aren't any harmful chemicals in here. I think it's food safe or something, but I wouldn't want to ingest it. I wouldn't recommend that. But in any case, I just know it's all 100% organic or whatever, and it has kind of a menthol wintergreen kind of scent to it, which, you know, I guess is okay, but better than, I mean, that smells like a bicycle chain. This smells like you know, like sports injury. But this stuff here, and I know there are better products. There's another product called, and I don't have it right now, but I think it's really great. It's called Finish Line. It's kind of like the bow shield, but it's not as thin, and it leaves kind of a Teflon. It's like it's an oil, a lubricant, a bike lubricant, just like this, but it leaves like a Teflon film on it, and it lasts longer. And that's a really good one. That's a really good one. But I just happen to have these, and I'm not spending money on more. This one's been working pretty great. I like it, although, you know, it's a paste, and it's a little more work putting it on than the spray. The spray's great, but the spray's more expensive too. So, you know, you do what you can, but that's how I take care of the top, and it's done pretty well. I haven't, now, I would recommend, now you see there are some scratches and stuff, really fine abrasions you'll see here. That's from my orbital sander, because sometimes I'll just be working outside, and then I'll just set a piece of plywood on top, and then I'll put my workpiece and I'll start sanding away. Every now and then my orbital sander will catch the top, and I know it's kind of careless, but you know, when you have a space constraint, you know, you got to work wherever you can. So, but I've heard people say if your top gets stained or rusty, use some sandpaper. No, whatever you do, be really careful with sandpaper. I tried that once with 1,000 grit I think I heard somebody recommend don't go lower than 600. No, I say don't go lower than 1200. Because even 1000 grit left some noticeable abrasions. They were very uniform because of the way I sanded it, but it does affect the top. And so you got to get a really fine sandpaper. And you see, I used to have a lot of stains on here, but I took them off. So basically now I just use 1500 grit sandpaper, and then I keep regular maintenance of it. And I don't have to worry about rust or stains anymore. So that's the deal with that. Anyway, moving on. This fence assembly here is, well, if you notice this, there's kind of a layered plastic type of, oops, I think some adhesive got on there or something. Kind of a layered plastic or something on top of these things. It's not one of those plastic things they put that you kind of peel off like on a new refrigerator or a computer or something. Just part of the magnetic tape, I mean the adhesive tape that they put on this fence. Well, that stuff starts to peel over time. One of the things I hate about saws, like my bandsaw, a different brand, of course, and this is, notice how, look at the fence here. You see this little plastic window? It's kind of sunken down in there, but still, it's there's space between it and the ruler. Okay. So if you're looking at it from here and looking at it from this angle, you're going to get a different reading. If you're like right on top, you might be putting a little more weight on your right leg or left leg. Maybe you're standing on a driveway where it's kind of inclined or whatever. So eyeballing it, you're not going to get a real accurate reading. I don't know how people can make adjustments with this with any accuracy, because, you know, depending on the angle I look at it, I'm going to see it one way and clamp it down and start cutting. I wouldn't do that. I always check with the combination square or something. But because this isn't flat against the ruler tape, it kind of it's hard to judge. I wish they would make stuff that just goes flush against it, so you know that no matter which direction you look at it from, it's going to be right on top of there. That would be a lot more useful. So basically this is useless to me, this tape. I'd rather just have it without it, or maybe etched in there. I don't know. But the fact that it kind of peels and stuff, and no matter how much you try to take care of it, you know, it's just not, I don't really care for it. And that's just me. Now, one of the things here I'll show you is that the JobSite Pro comes with a one-turn mechanism. You just turn it one time, raise up and lower the blade all the way. This doesn't have that. I wish it did. All Sawstop saws should have it. That's really cool, useful, but, you know, that's not a feature of this one. Good news, however, is that when I got this from the factory, I took my digital angle finder, right? And I checked everything, and the blade itself was straight, and everything was pretty much square right out of factory except for the fence. It was a little bit off. However, after figuring out some of the little idiosyncrasies and nuances of the fence, adjusting it, I got it to where I have a really good straight fence. And now the fence is a whole can of worms here I'm about to open with this saw, because first of all, shame on Sawstop, in my opinion, all right, for this fence. I don't get it, except that they just want to make you spend money. And I guess they don't understand that not everybody has money they're just going to throw at things. For example, this doesn't come with the mobile base. However, being a contractor saw, you take it to job sites. It needs mobility. $200 I got to spend for this mobile base. something you should know about it too. If, like me, you've already assembled the saw and you have all these bolts and everything tightened in there, well, when you got to put on the mobile base, you're going to have to loosen all those bolts and stuff underneath the 200-something pound cast iron top and retighten them to put the mobile base on, you know. So if you can put the mobile base on while you're assembling it, you'll save yourself some trouble. Now I've seen review videos and stuff of this saw where there were like 2, even 3 people, I think, putting the top on. I didn't have anybody to help me out. I put this top on myself. So basically I just propped up one edge with a piece of wood and then lifted it up, you know. But I'll tell you one thing, if you haven't trained, I mean, I haven't powered lifted for many years, and you know, it's not like I'm gonna go and set any records, but you know, if you can deadlift with good form, okay, and you know how to lift things properly, you know, if you can deadlift 300 pounds or whatever, this shouldn't be too much of a hassle to put on yourself. Okay, I did it. It wasn't too bad. A lot of you can probably do that too, but if you don't know how to lift properly with good form, using your legs and all that stuff, then, you know, don't get somebody to help you. But in any case, I put it on, adjusted it, had to retighten everything, readjust that to get the mobile base on there. Now everything's square, it fits right, so on. Now, back to this fence. All right, so this fence here serves its purpose. It's accurate. It glides smooth enough, right? And it stays in place. Especially when I'm pushing heavy boards, it doesn't move at all. It doesn't slide or anything. So it works. Now, if you look at this thing underneath, you'll see that these sides are aluminum inside, covered with this like melamine, kind of really thin melamine kind of board. Looks like plywood or something. Really like a really thin 1/8 of an inch or something. And it does. This is not the T-glide fence either. This is this rolls on these metal, these little metal lips here that kind of catch on to the rail, right? And then here, it just kind of grabs onto this, locks in, and that's it. So this fence does the job. The problem with this fence is, and I'm fine with it, right? You cannot upgrade it. With this model, you can't upgrade the fence. Now, I called Sawstop a couple of times trying to figure out how could you upgrade it if you wanted to. Maybe you could use a different model. There's a different model, more expensive than the contractor saw, that has a fence. It's not like the ones that come with the 36 and 50-inch model. The real fancy one with that kind of looks like those, the ones you see on the woodworking channels and that. But it's better than this one. That's 30 inches as well, I think. And I was like, well, how could this work? So I asked, okay, what if I upgraded for $520 the cast iron wings, and then bought a whole new fence assembly, which I think costs about $450 or $500 maybe for that one. So you spend about $900 or $1,000. And I think it's possible. I can't remember what they said. I just looked into it at first just to see out of curiosity. But I'm leaning towards, in my remembrance, that you just can't upgrade the fence. That's, I think, my takeaway. Or if you could, it's just not worth it. But that really sucks. Because, you know, one of the things I really thought would be great are some of the jigs you can make with having that wide, you know, T-glide fence. It's narrow and the top is rounded, so you can't really put a jig on here. And because the inside of this thing is like aluminum, and with this mallet, you can't really clamp it. You're going to bend it or warp it or something. You know, it's kind of like you're limited, you know. Another thing too, and I see a lot of guys that they'll do this stuff, you know, to get in there. For the love of God, man, if you're going to spend $3,000-$4,000 on a table saw, then you better not have to be doing all this tapping stuff to get it perfectly square. I want to be able to slide the saw in place, clap, boom, it's square, you know. If you have to do all that stuff, then you just wasted a bunch of money on a fancy table saw, you know. But in any case, I like this because I can just slide it here, boom, clamp it, and it's perfectly square. No problem. It works. Now, there is a little bit of technique I got to admit. First, you have to have it tuned. There's a very fine point in tightening it to where you get a smooth operation but grabs just the right amount. You have to really work with it and tune it to find that, to get it adjusted right at that right point where it has the right tension that stays but allows you to slide smoothly. Another thing is there's just a slight amount of technique, because notice, unless you make it real tight, it won't slide smoothly. You're going to have a little bit of play. But I noticed that when I slide, if I'm putting the pull on this end, then when I lock it, it kind of just straightens out the other end. Now, you can kind of pull it towards you and lock it down, but doing so, you sometimes, when you have let's say you position a workpiece on a line right where you want to cut it, and by putting that pressure, by pulling on the thing to straighten it out before you lock it down, sometimes you move the workpiece you're holding and you have to go back and try it and set it up again. This here, if you just kind of come to the right, touching the workpiece with the pressure you're using to push it along, kind of down here on this end, and then lock it down, it just kind of, and it straightens out perfect, no problem. So it's just a little nuance, you know, and technique, but it works. I really wish I could upgrade the fence simply because the jigs I could use for tenons and tenoning and stuff like that would be great. But that's, you know, they do that. So the mobile base and the fence were real letdowns with this saw. But, you know, because this was at the beginning of all the lockdowns and everything, table saws were just not on the market. Apparently, woodworkers came out of the woodwork, buying up all the woodworking equipment in the freaking world once the pandemic struck. And everybody, every day in my neighborhood, I was hearing table saws running and all kinds of equipment. And sure enough, people are doing home projects or whatever since they're confined. So there really wasn't anything I wanted so bad. The Laguna Fusion 2 or F2. Laguna Fusion F2, which I think came with the mobile base, but it was only $13.99, and it was a really nice saw. And I think the wings on it were also cast iron, not steel like this one. That was the one I really wanted. And I'll tell you more about my purchase decision later, honestly. But for now, this is what they had. And why didn't I get the 36-inch model, which had the base and the fence? Well, one of the things is that model is also like, I think, 85 pounds heavier. When you got to move around a saw, you know, if you're moving around a 280-pound saw versus a 360-pound saw, that's going to make a difference, you know, especially when you got to kind of go off the ledge of your garage, or if you're loading into a truck, or, you know, up a ramp or something like that, whatever, because it's a contractor saw. You take it to job sites and work, you know. And because it's a contractor saw, it's also like a work platform, because there's going to be a lot of stuff you're doing at a job site where you need extra workspace. So this kind of gives you the extra space, more so than the Job Site Pro, although this is much harder to roll around than that one, but, you know, that's just a thing. Now, let me tell you something that is a real... Okay, my video got interrupted here, but let me tell you something that's a real bummer. Now, if you notice this back part, okay, this back part here, this motor and belt assembly are exposed. And, oh yeah, by the way, this power cord, they don't really give you anywhere to put it. It just kind of hangs out, and I used to keep the zip ties on it for a while. I just got tired of putting them back and forth. You can't really hang it on the hooks there, you know, but they have these hooks. And the problem with the hooks is when you got a mobile saw you're toting around, these things clang against the edges and all that, and it's kind of a pain. It's just not a great design in terms of holding your tools. But this part right here is just a dumb design. I'm sorry to say it. I actually called Sawstop a while back when I first got the saw and asked them, because they didn't have a display model, right? They didn't have a display model where I could see the back of the saw. I just saw it on the pictures, and it was the only one available. I got to get this saw because I need a table saw right now. I need to finish my projects. Well, when I first put this together, I was like, wait, is this right? Is this belt really exposed like that? Is there a way to, like, you know, it kind of moves up and down, but there's nothing to cover the belt. So you got this space right here. You got this space where the belt itself is just exposed. And what happened to me was, I was at a job site and I asked somebody, hey, can you plug this cable in for me? Okay, here we go. I said, hey, can you plug the cable? So I got and plugged the cable. What happened was the cable, he pulled it and it kind of came over this part. And because there's an opening right there, it fell over the opening. I turned it on, and then what happened is the belt grinded against the cable, and look, see, I've got some electrical tape I had to cover it, ate into the cable, the power cord. I didn't even notice because, you know, I don't really think that going and plugging something in, you got danger you have to worry about. To me, it's just, and also if you think about it, you know, this this is right at the end of where your workpieces fall. I mean, what's to stop a workpiece from falling into this this belt housing right here? It just opened. To me, it just boggles my mind why they would design something like this. It's stupid, to be honest with you. I don't understand it. All they had to do was just extend this part a little bit more just to keep things from falling in. It would still get plenty of airflow and all that. I don't understand why they did it this way. But funny thing is, when I called Sawstop and I asked them, I was like, hey, I was putting the saw together and I'm not really sure if this is right because I didn't see the display model, you know. But this whole back part's like open. Is that supposed to be right? You know, how do you keep things from falling? And they acted like it was a stupid question. And sure enough, it didn't take, it was less than a week of having this thing. Took it out to a job site, somebody plugged it in, and then it ate into the power cord. Luckily, I haven't had any issues with it since, but it's something I have to be cognizant of. I have to be careful because you have an opening for the belt of your motor. So it just sucks that you have to remain conscious of that when you're doing stuff. But you know, that's just I don't know why they engineer it that way. It's kind of like with the throat plate. They could have done a better job engineering it. And when you consider the way they packaged the saw, the packaging was immaculate. The instructions were immaculate. There was good engineering in that. But yet they couldn't figure out a better way to engineer the throat plate and the motor. I don't get it, but it's just okay. Now this brake cartridge, something is a big factor in this saw. Okay, I'll tell you, first of all, it really does work, I think, for saving from getting cut or whatever. But having this feature here was more of a nuisance to me. It was more of a novelty when I was first looking at the saw. I just thought to myself, I wish you could just turn it off, or I wish you could have the option of getting it without the brake, so you could get it cheap. You could get the saw cheaper, but that's not an option. You got to use the cartridge. The problem is with the cartridge costs like $80. But if the cartridge gets tripped, your blade is ruined. That's it. You can't even use it. Well, you want to buy a replacement blade. The made in China blades that come with these are actually pretty good blades, and I've compared several, and I'll do another review on those blades later. This is a Diablo Fusion. I wouldn't say it's my favorite blade, but it does the job, and it's a little bit better than the Chinese 40-tooth blade with the same specs that comes with the saw. But either way, you want to replace that one. I think it's about $40 or $50 for the stock blade. But if you want to go to the store and get a blade that's not a thin curve, and the manual, I believe, recommends a blade that's a full curve because of the brake. You don't want a thin curve blade hitting that brake and then shooting off teeth at you, I guess. But a full curve blade, 40 teeth, combination blade, it's going to set you back $100 at least, like this one. This one costs about $100. What happens is if this brake goes off, you're down. You can't do anything. If you're in the middle of a project and you set off the brake, you not only have to go back in and put a new blade and reseat the cartridge, and then you have to make some adjustments. So you have to check with your combination square, make sure everything's, it's kind of it's not like you're going to be up and running that quickly. But if you have a cartridge and a blade on hand, you can finish your work for the day. But if you don't have those things and you try to run to the store, and buy them, it's going to set you back, if they have them. With all the woodworking equipment being so hard to get right now because it's just flying off the shelves, good luck trying to find one when you need it. So I wasn't real thrilled about this prospect, but I thought, oh well, it's a safety feature. Okay, I don't have much choice, so let's go with it. And in my mind, I thought, well, I'm just going to be really careful, and I'm not going to set it off. And you may have that same mindset. Certainly I did. Let me tell you, no matter how smart you think you are or how careful you think you're going to be, you're going to set that thing off accidentally. It's just going to happen. What happened when I accidentally set it off the first time was I had a miter bar that has an aluminum, a miter gauge that has an aluminum fence on it and a melamine fence and all that. Well, I was doing some certain angle cutting, and the aluminum piece I had to kind of hold down with my fingers, and I think I got maybe maybe that close to the blade. I mean, I never put my hands close to the blade out of habit, but somehow or another, I did probably half an inch from the blade, it set the thing off. Freaked me out too because I jumped. It was just chunk, and it stopped. I mean, I was in the middle of a project and it sucked. So I went running around all over town. I couldn't find a full curve 40-tooth blade except at Woodcraft, and all they had was these $200 forest blades. And I thought, oh man, $200 plus the $80 cartridge. They didn't even have the cartridges available. Rockler, Woodland, I called all the places I could. I found this one little place that happened to have one of these blades left, and it happened to be on sale. So instead of paying $100 for the Diablo Fusion, or whatever it's called. I think I paid like 80 bucks. But then it was a brake cartridge, was another 80 bucks. By the time I got everything back and set up, and after all the driving around and phone calls, you know, to get the things I needed, it was like 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and there wasn't much work I could do on my project then. My day was pretty much shot. That sucks. It really sucks that you can't operate the stupid saw if the brake goes off. It would be nice if you could at least put a blade on there and keep using it, but the saw refuses to work if you set off the cartridge. You can't even put it on bypass and use it, I don't think so. This is something you're going to have to consider. So anyway, that's going to happen. Be prepared for it. If you can afford the expense, then... And I think also Sawstop will send you another cartridge. If you send in yours, they got tripped for certain reasons. But you know, you still got to detach the saw from it, and that's kind of a little bit of work to do, and then send it in and fill out this form online and all this stuff. But either way, you know, that's a caveat. I mean, it seems to really work, but I haven't set it off since, thank God, because I'm just really careful. So in addition to the open back part over there and the movement of the throat plate and the brake cartridge or the braking system, all these things you kind of have to keep your mind on or have in the back of your mind somewhere. It's kind of a downer. You don't want to think about a whole lot of things when you're focused on stuff, especially precision work. But that's part of the game, I suppose. So let me tell you a couple of other things about this saw. Okay. When I first had the saw, it was all brand new, and I had this brand new saw, but I had all these scratches around here because they give you these little Allen wrenches, and I'm going to show you here where I have mine. Hopefully you can see that in this light. But basically it's a little plastic holder for one wrench, but it doesn't hold the little Allen wrenches on it. And I would take it out and show it to you, but I've taped it. All right, a little interruption in the recording there because I got a phone call. But anyway, so there's this little plastic thing that holds one of the big Allen wrench, and it's got this little tab at the bottom which you use to measure the distance between the cartridge and the blade. It doesn't have anywhere really to put the other little Allen wrenches that come with it. So I basically just taped them on there. And the reason I used the tape is because on the back of it has these two little magnets. And the magnets, you know, they stick against the chassis here, but they're not that strong. So when you're rolling around and stuff, this thing's going to fall off. So I had to tape it. So I got some tape to hold the other smaller Allen wrenches, and then I taped this thing up here so it would stay, it wouldn't fall off. Like I said, the way, but going back to the Allen wrench part, okay, this is just a minor gripe, but so the saw was all brand new and pristine, but by the time I adjusted the fence, this was all scratched up. Why? Because the Allen wrenches that came with it, the short end doesn't fit in here without scraping against this the holes. If you try to use the log end, put it vertically and use the short end to torque it and the long end to into the hole, the bolts here are too substantial. They're too tight to be able to get any torque with the short end. Even if you're pretty strong, you know, it's just not, you're not going to really, you might bend your Allen wrench or crack it or something before you get these things untightened, but they were really tight. So I put the short in there and it fit just enough, and loosening them up, it scratched the point is that, you know, I wish that people would include tools with your saw that fit. Another thing is let me show you this part right here. So you got these hooks, and underneath here you have bolts you have to tighten up. And but they're back to back, so you can't fit a regular socket wrench in here to tighten the bolts. You have to have one of those kinds that are really flat or something, because they're back to back, and the bolts themselves come together pretty close. So you got to get in between them once you have one on. I don't know, this design, they could have offset these hooks. It's just a stupid engineering design. They probably give you 1/2 inch space between the bolts to fit a wrench in there. That's just something I noticed, you know. And if you don't already have a variety of tools, you know, you have to use what comes with the equipment. So, you know, if you're not using the proper tool, you might strip a bolt or something, you know. But it's just something that I noticed about this, kind of a dumb. And plus, another thing, these hooks here, I can't even keep the riving, big plastic riving guard thing, ripping guard or whatever, on here, because if you're rolling it around and stuff, it's just going to fall right off. This doesn't snap in place or anything like that. So usually on these hooks here, I'll just keep a roll of duct tape, painter's tape, and I'll keep a clamp on the other one or something, so if I ever need to clamp down anything to my sled, you know, that'll work. But you know, this that's part of the design and the tools, so that's kind of another little gripe. Now, miter bar. The miter bar that comes with this is so much better than that piece of crap miter bar that they include with the Job Site Pro. This one is much more substantial. It's accurate. It was dead accurate, 90 degrees out of the box and all when I got it. Now, and it fits without too much play, right? You can adjust that a little bit with the nut at the end. Now, here you have a couple of screws which you can adjust. 1, 2, 3. And you have these screws here. Then you have this thing. And then you have this to tighten it up. Now, I will say that when you put a fence on here, well, first of all, there's kind of you have to have a certain size bolt that will go in here. And it bolts down with about that much space between the bolt and the nut. So, I wouldn't say it's the greatest design for expanding this to use a fence, but you know, the miter bar itself is pretty sturdy and works good. I will say that you have to tighten this knob. There is no other lock or anything on here really to keep this from moving when you're cutting a piece, especially if you've got kind of a heavy, you know, let's say a 5-inch wide board you're trying to cross cut, but that's, you know, maybe an 1/4 thickness. And you know, this thing's gonna, if you don't tighten this up really good, there could be a couple of improvements, but this is a big step up from the one that comes with the Job Site Pro. But anyway, you know, this is the miter bar that comes with it, and it seems to work pretty well, you know. So it's not too bad. I can't complain about that too much. And let me check something else here. I'll show you. Okay, so last part. How does it cut? One of the problems I have with this saw is that it constantly stalls out on me, and I have to go back to my circuit breaker and reset it. Even when I'm just cutting through like softer woods like mahogany and poplar that are maybe you know, 4/4 or 5/4, not even that thick, I got to go kind of slowly. They can stall out on me just cutting, and it just constantly, I don't know. I did a lot of cutting with other saws, 115 volt saws. This is 150 volts, not one of those 230 or 220 volt saws. And even the Job Site Pro, for the time I had it, it just cut beautifully. It had enough power, but this one here, I don't know if it's just this motor that my saw particularly, or if it's just this model, or what is it about this compared to, say, the Job Site Pro. But I want to say the Job Site Pro saw seemed a little bit more powerful, or at least reliable in cuts. This one here wants to stall out a lot, just making like regular cuts. Now, about the blade, which I told you I'd tell you a little bit more later. This blade burns. You're trying to cut through a piece of wood, you're going to have a lot of sparks and ashes coming out of here and smoke, because these thick curved blades, they particularly, I don't get real great rips or cross cuts with this this blade. However, I did happen to find an Amana blade, titanium. I think it's about 90 bucks. It's not even as expensive as those other, like this. It's not even expensive, this one or the Forest or whatever there. But that blade actually has better cuts. In fact, I want to say that the titanium blade that Sawstop makes, it's I think 60 bucks, is a little bit better than their other stock blade. But even their other stock blade cuts a little bit cleaner. And I don't know if it's because this kerf is just a little tiny bit wider or whatever, but you know, you put that together with this underpowered motor, it's just kind of a hassle. So that's pretty much it for this table saw. You know, in short, you know, I've been doing a lot of work with it. I've made a lot of nice projects. I get accurate cuts, but there's a lot that goes into that. I wish that for spending $1,700, I wouldn't have to put all this other brain power and keep conscious, this brain power into other things and keep conscious of all these little things. I wish I could just focus on my work and everything just works the way it should. But I don't know if maybe there's always some little idiosyncrasies with all saws. And I haven't had experience with other things, especially with the Powermatic, with my Powermatic mortiser, which, oh man, I got to tell you about that. I'll put a review video of that for you. But this table saw, it's reliable. It does the job. Customer service is okay. The accessories that come with it, the miter bar, the throw plate, you know, they're all decent. I guess, you know, the fence, despite not being a fancy fence, it has been very reliable. Once I had it set up the first time and tuned and everything, I haven't had to go back and make any adjustments to it. After lots of heavy boards, after probably 4 months of cutting with this thing almost every day, it just works. It hasn't slipped or anything, and thank God for that. Now, another thing is that I use these table saw sleds here lately to make some things. This one in particular, well, I've got some stuff on there right now, but I wanted to show you during the video. But basically, you know, it works pretty well. There was something that came to my attention I didn't know about, but Sawstop makes this extension table with a magnificent, a spectacular miter bar. A miter bar on steroids, man. And it comes out of the table saw and it'll give you extra room, and it has this like awesome miter bar, and I could use that. The thing is that it costs $1,200 for that thing. Oh, what a great! So it's more than just a novelty. I mean, that thing would be outstanding for my work, for the kind of things I do, like building, you know, furniture and pieces and pedal boards and speaker cabs or whatever. But in any case, overall, this saw, you know, you'll get most of your money's worth with the saw. And I mean, the quality you think is there. When you hear Sawstop, right, you think maybe an American brand, I suppose, because you know, the name's kind of ubiquitous. You see their red throat plate on a lot of videos and things like that. But so honestly, when you open the box and you see made in China, it's kind of like, wait a minute here, you know, $1,700 saw, you know, the big Sawstop name, ubiquitous, made in China, kind of like, oh, well, you know, what can you do, right? But, you know, it is what it is. And I hate that term, it is what it is, by the way, but I never use that. I don't know why I said that. But now, let me tell you about my purchase. How, if I would do it differently now or not.